If you got through parts 1, 2, and 3 of this 4-part series, you now know it's virtually impossible to go into a calorie deficit that's anything more than, call it 20% of your basal metabolic needs for calories for energy on a daily basis. It's virtually impossible to not A, have a drop in metabolism, and B, lose some muscle. Right? Didn't we establish that? I think there was in total 18 studies referenced in the first 3 parts. So whether it's a calorie deficit because you're doing Weight Watchers, The Zone, Jenny Craig, or the Ornish, or you're a keto advocate, you're a keto Atkins low carb practitioner, or for that matter, if you intermittent fast in part 3, none of them provide enough protection mechanisms to prevent you from having a drop in metabolism. Right? It's important, not to mention losing muscle. We established it 18 studies straight showed muscle loss regardless if you're in a severe calorie deficit beyond about 20%. So this is number 4. This is if you were in Coach Mike's boot camp. What do? I'm glad you asked. So I'm not telling you what to do here. This is not going to be a situation where Coach Mike thinks that he's going to tell you what you must do to be successful. I'm definitely a certified keto coach. I'm a boot camp coach, and I'm a personal trainer. So I think after 30 years, I have some experience to share, but do with it what you will. I am not a doctor. So in the next few minutes, when I give you some suggestions and some advice, were you in my boot camp and you said, Mike, I'd like to try that keto Atkins thing, maybe some low carb, maybe some intermittent fasting, but per your videos, I don't want the negative impacts. I don't want the repercussions. What do you recommend? I'm going to give it to you. You're going to get it straight. If you agree, disagree, I'd love to see a comment down below. The best comments always turn into videos just like this one. Are you ready? Let's get after it. Hey team, Mike here at After 40 Fitness and after40fitness.ca. I'm going to break this 4th one up into a couple of sections. We're going to talk about what it takes to be successful in this regimen, whether you decide it's keto Atkins low carb or intermittent fasting. In fact, I'm going to cover them all, but let's break it up into a couple of categories. Let's start with nutrition. Let's start with a calorie deficit. We'll talk about that. Number 2 is going to be weight training. As you know by now, I do not believe that you can healthily lose fat without weight training. Okay, I'll say it again. Healthy fat loss mandates, requires, it's not optional, requires resistance training. All right, so if you don't like that, you might as well turn off the video right now because I'm going to give it to you straight. And every video I've shown you so far shows that if you don't resistance train, not walk, not run, not bike, not swim, not chase your kids around the house with a pillow, not vacuum, not even taking stairs at the office instead of the elevator, none of that stops muscle loss. Not one iota. Stop it. Stop. Don't be naive. You must resistance train. You must lift something heavy, and I'm going to prove it again today with a little summary of a bunch more science. It should be compelling by now if you watch the first few videos, but it's mandatory. So a deficit that's not severe, we're going to talk about resistance training, and then we're going to talk about if you do decide to fast. All right? Part 3 of this little soliloquy is going to be on if you do decide to fast, and what you learn in the last one is you got to vary it. All right? And I'm going to walk you through a bit of a mock schedule that, again, if you came to me for suggestions and advice, this is what I would deliver. Okay, so let's get after it right now. We're going to start with a deficit and how big it needs to be. Any conversation about a deficit requires that we first know a couple of acronyms, right? Do you know the difference between a BMR or an RMR? Those are kind of synonymous, a basal metabolic rate, and a resting metabolic rate versus TDEE. Total daily energy expenditure. So the resting metabolic rate, or also known as the BMR, the basal metabolic rate, is your energy at rest. If you were bedridden, if you were stuck to your bed, you slept 8 hours a day, but for the 16 waking hours you were tied to a bed, the amount of calories your body would need just to survive, to run your organs, your mind, your brain, that's your BMR or your RMR, but we're going to use BMR going forward. If you get up and go about your day, if you climb some stairs, if you play with the kids, if you clean the house, it doesn't matter, right? Going about your 16 hours of daily activity is the piece of the puzzle that you and I have some leverage, some control to bump up our BMR up to that value that is our total daily energy expenditure. Now, that means you need to know those numbers. All right, if we talk about a deficit against what? Never a deficit against your BMR. I mean, unless you're bedridden, why would we even talk about BMR? We're going to talk about your total daily energy expenditure and all the things that go into it, because it's not just your time in bed, it's your 16 hours of daily activity. So if you don't know that number, well, isn't that important? If we're going to talk about a deficit, it's against that TDEE. Right, so I'll give you an example. My basal metabolic rate, and I'm going to walk you through this. There's some calculators that you can use. If you don't know, roughly ballpark, granted, we're all slightly individual, so it's a bit of always a plus minus, right? Be clear, there's always a plus minus on any time we talk about about total daily energy expenditure. But my basal metabolic rate is right around 2,200. But I eat 3,000 in maintenance. Well, that extra 800 is 100% daily activity. And at 3,000 or 3,100, I don't gain, I don't lose. I got to go above 3,100 to gain, and anything below 3,100, I lose. And I do that 100%, by the way, via exercise. I eat 3,000 calories a day every day, but I work out 6 days a week in some way, shape, or form. So let's talk about your basal metabolic, not just your BMR, your TDE. Do you know it? Do you know it with any degree of accuracy? There are several really good calculator sites, online total daily energy expenditure calculators that you can use to figure out, granted, again, close counts when it comes to your total daily energy expenditure. I like this one. This site's called thecalculatorsite.com. Really good. You should bookmark this page. It's got tons of really good, you can see handy, cooking, health, lots of options. And down below financial calculators is a spot for health-centric calculators, like, for example, the BMR. When I select the BMR calculator, it takes me to an option to, we're going to do this. We're going to do this together, you and I, real quick, and I'll use myself and a mock woman, and we'll run through it quickly. By default, it comes up in metric, so for the world, you'll get it. For the US, all right, switch over to imperial. And I'm going to do that right now as well. Even though I'm 52 years old and live in Canada, I still like doing my weight in pounds. So play along here, but you can, of course, mix back and forth between metric and imperial. Let's do it. I'm going to do it myself real quick. By the way, there are two calculations, two different algorithms. They're very, very close. They're within 50 calories of each other, so it doesn't matter which one you use. 52, height 5'10", and weight is not in stone. I'm in pounds, which is bang on 200. Now, it gives you an option. Now, by the way, that's going to tell you already your BMR. But then you get to decide as well if you're sedentary, lightly active, moderately, highly, or super active. And I fit in this category of highly active. I do some form of exercise 6 days a week. Okay, whether it's lifting, whether it's HIIT, 6 days a week, I fit here. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to stick with sedentary. Now, make no mistake, sedentary doesn't mean bedridden. It just means I don't exercise. I still go about my day. I still go to grocery shopping. I still clean the house. I still do chores. I still play with the kids. Okay, but sedentary means little or no exercise. Be clear. So let's do a calculate, and let's see what this does for me at my weight. Takes a couple seconds, and then it's going to tell me that my BMR, if I was bedridden, 1,763 calories. However, my TDEE, being sedentary, is about 2,100. That's the value right there that matters. 2,100 is the number against which I'm going to create my deficit. I'm not bedridden. Never against my BMR. I sometimes wish my boot camp crew didn't even know their BMR. I like to tell them this number and this number only because, notice, highly active, I actually belong here at 3,000 and change. Right? We've established that. Being highly active, this number right here, in fact, let's go up and do it really quickly. I'm going to switch it to highly active and calculate, and it's going to come up and tell me 3041. My BMR didn't change, but it's immaterial. I'm not bedridden. So let's do it again one more time for a woman. I'm going to switch then to a female. Going to say she's 35. Going to say she's 5'5", and she weighs, I don't know, how's 150 pounds? Let's do that. And let's again say moderately active. So she only works out 3, 4, 5 times a week, but she does something physical. This woman, 3, 4, 5 times. You know you should, right? Have you caught on to that healthy fat loss requires exercise? You do not want to give up muscle. You don't want to drop in resting energy expenditure. And the only way to avoid it, we established in all 3 of the first parts of this video series, is you must have a little bit higher protein than normal, and you must exercise. I know you know that. So this woman, her BMR, doesn't matter, is 1,400. But she should have 2,100 calories a day to maintain 2,100. So the number of women, and some of you I'm sure are watching this video, are eating 1,000, 1,200, 1,400 calories. Crazy. Even at 1,400, that's a 700 calorie a day deficit. You will crash your metabolism. There's no chance of putting on muscle, and you will absolutely lose some. It is impossible for you to think that well, it's not impossible for you to think, but it's impossible that you won't lose muscle and have a drop in resting energy expenditure in your metabolic rate at a 700 calorie a day deficit. Don't be silly. Oh, but now we have to ask, if 700 calories is too big, what is the right value? Well, we talked about it already, right? If you watch parts 1, 2, and 3, you already know we're talking about a modest deficit against this value of 2,100. Well, let's have a look at some science to back it up. The first of 2 studies we're going to look at is in the International Journal of Sports Nutrition and Exercise Metabolism. I covered this study briefly in my video on body recomposition, showing how important it is that your calorie deficit, that your energy deficit be modest. Not at all severe. And that's the purpose of this study as well, to see the effect of two different weight loss rates. Okay, so they're going to compare as a modest deficit with a severe deficit on body comp. That's what we're interested in, right? The difference between fat mass and fat-free mass loss. All right. Now, they also check not just on body comp, but on power and strength. But I'm more interested in, and I'm sure you are too, is what are the impacts of the good and bad, positive pros and cons about a modest deficit versus a severe deficit. That was the purpose of this study. They were going to compare fast reduction versus slow reduction, or what we're going to call this difference in calorie deficit. We hypothesized that the faster weight loss regimen would result in more detrimental effects on both lean body mass and strength. All right, they believe already, they're looking for proof that the greater the weight loss regimen or the more severe the calorie deficit, the greater the detrimental impacts would be. Excellent. Down below, here's where they cover the energy intake. Energy intake was reduced in the slow group by 20%, 19, but plus or minus, let's call it 20, and 30 in the fast group. So there's the difference, just 10%. So for you women who looked at that previous example I gave of how to figure out your TDEE, and you figured it to be between 2,000 and 2,100. Okay, if that's your if you take that away, if that was your qualification, then you can see here the difference is 10%. So a 20% deficit of 2,000 calories is a 400 calorie deficit. And yet they're going to show the difference between 400 and 30%, which is 600. So the difference between eating at 1,400 calories and 1,600 calories, if your TDEE is 2,000, well, let's see what the impact is. Are you ready? So they compared body weight and fat mass. So in body weight, I want you to see that in the slow and in the fast respectively, 5.6% drop in body weight for the slow group and 5.5. Well, that's the same, 5.6 to 5.5. That's a wash for body weight. For fat mass dropped of the weight loss 31% in the slow group, 21% in the fast group. The slow group actually did better. They lost a greater percentage of fat. Interesting. Now, why do you think that is? Well, it's right here. Lean body mass increased. Wow, guys, that's body recomposition right there, my friends. Lean body mass increased by 2% in the slow group, whereas it was unchanged in the fast group. Well, it actually went down a hair. There's the difference of it, just a 10% discrepancy, if you will, in calorie deficit. 20% is modest, 30% based on these results you have to consider extreme. 30% deficit, which is what, man, I say it again, you'll jump in the forums and you see people who should be at 2,000 calories who are eating 1,000 or less, doing OMAD, eating 1,000 or 16.8 or 18.6 and eating 1,200. Severe deficits. Okay, lean body mass increased in the slow group. If your deficit by this example is no more than 20%, you can work out and actually expect to see perhaps an increase in muscle mass, while at the same time losing the most amount of fat possible. That's body recomp, my friends, right there. Okay, whereas unchanged in the fast group, I don't call it negative anything. Granted, it's small. It's a couple of ounces, but they lost it when all they had to do was not be in such a severe deficit, and they could have added. Guys, that's profound. Our second study is in PLOS 1. It's called the Metabolic and Behavioral Compensations in Response to Calorie Restriction and its implications for maintenance of weight loss. All right, we looked at this one in the first of the 4-part series on calorie deficits. And this one was the purpose was to compare again deficits with or without exercise. Oh, this was so good. I learned a lot from this study. I hope you did as well. 48 overweight or obese were randomized to 4 different groups over 6 months. Excellent study. The control group, no change. Ate 100% of the normal energy requirements, didn't exercise, just no change. They're the control group. The next group had a 25% calorie deficit. All right, so we just learned 20 to 30, somewhere in there. Actually, I don't think you want to ever exceed 20. Let me prove it to you right here. So a 25% calorie restriction was group 2. Group 3 also had a 25% deficit, but half from diet. So 12.5% was their calorie restriction via their menu. The other half was an increase in expenditure by exercise. So another 12.5% every day via exercise. And then just a low calorie group that just went right to 900. Unbelievable. Until they hit a 15% weight reduction. Weight change at month 6. Here we go. The control group lost a pound. hey, just by tracking, just by having to keep it tracking, carb manager, they used MyFitnessPal, they made some better choices and lost a pound. Well done. Now, the calorie restricted group at 25% lost 10.4, and the calorie restricted plus exercise group lost 10. So as far as total body weight goes, that's also pretty much a wash. We don't call half a pound over 6 months significant. They didn't in the study, the authors didn't. And 14-pound loss for the low-carb diet. All right, so they lost the most, but 900 calories. Who wants to be in that group? That sucks. All right, so I'd much rather be already, I can tell you, in the 12.5% group that exercise. Eat the most amount of food. That's huge. All right, let's see the difference. At month 3, absolute total daily energy expenditure rate. So we talked about a drop in metabolic rate. So it dropped significantly in the 25% group. Guys, if you're in a 25% deficit or more, there's the results. Just cutting your calories, if you're a 2,000 calorie a day woman and you drop to 1,500, just 1,500, not 12, not 11, not 1,000 calories a day, 1,500, your metabolism caught up. It caught up and you dropped 454 calories of your daily energy expenditure of your metabolism. That's why women can go on a diet for a while and lose, and all of a sudden they stop because their metabolism drops to match their intake. There it is. They dropped 500 and the metabolism dropped 454 to match. Oh my God, that's profound. All right. And the low calorie group lost the most at minus 633. That hurts. But notice the last few words, but not in CR plus exercise. Obviously not controls. They were eating pretty much their TDEE, right? Just barely under. But total daily energy expenditure was not reduced in the calorie restricted plus exercise group. Guys, unbelievable. Like, that is so profound, I can't tell you. You should be having an epiphany right now. If you're eating less than 1,500 calories right now, women, if you're eating less than 1,500 calories, if you don't have an epiphany right now that says, oh my God, I got to figure out my TDEE and I got to drop it by 10, no more than 15, and definitely no more than 20%, and I got to up my exercise. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why you're watching my videos, because that's all I talk about is that methodology right there. What's the takeaway from all that information? Figure out your TDEE. Do not let your deficit via food be any greater than 20%. Not greater than 20%. Anything beyond that, any deficit beyond that is created via exercise. All right, I hope you got it. That was 10 minutes just dealing with a calorie deficit. Just dealing with how big or how small, how modest your deficit needs to be. This section on exercising is really simple. I'm going to spend all of 90 seconds on it. You must lift something heavy. Okay, as I say time and time again, please don't think that walking, honestly, don't think that walking, swimming, leisurely biking, chasing your kids around the house with a pillow, don't think that suffices. You need to lift something heavy enough that it sparks something called MPS, muscle protein synthesis. I'm going to recommend that if you aren't currently doing something lifting, something resistance training centric, do yourself a favor and Google workouts at home. All right, you're going to find out that between kettlebells, dumbbells, resistance bands, and I saw a video the other day where an elderly woman, I should put the link down below, I'll try to find it again, went around the house and found household items, books, chairs to dip or bench press between, and the woman was in her 60s. She had like a carton of milk and she did a bunch of curls in each hand. She did squats holding this carton of milk, like, you know what I mean, like a 4-liter jug. So there's no reason, unless, I often see in the forums, as I watch over my wife's shoulder in the ladies fasting forums, people say I can't work out. I have arthritis, I have rheumatoid arthritis, I have fibromyalgia. I'm going to be honest, I think that probably, and if you take this personally, forgive me. I'm not sorry when I say it, but you can forgive me. That probably 90% of people who say they can't work out probably can. They can do something. I'm not saying they got to go to the gym and squat and bench press and deadlift, but they can do something. All right? There are very few people who truly, truly are physically incapable of lifting something heavy until they can't lift it anymore. Right? I watch YouTube videos every day of people working with bands, kettlebells, dumbbells, or again, makeshift items at home that they can curl or press or some squat with or do lunges with 20 or 30 times to get a good burn, to stimulate some muscle protein synthesis. So again, just cardio is good. Make no mistake. I'll never knock walking, running, jogging, ellipticals, biking, swimming, all good. None will stop. Not one study you've ever seen, I couldn't find one. Not one time in 30 years of looking at this topic and researching it have I seen any study where it showed someone walking, running, swimming, biking, preventing muscle loss. But as I've shown in all 3 parts of this video series, exercising, lifting is as close as you can get to a panacea to not only prevent muscle loss, to drive it right down to 0, but potentially add a bit. Didn't we just learn in the study that by exercising, we saw that the control group actually lost like 0.2%, but the other group who didn't eat in such a severe deficit put on 2%. 2%. Unbelievable. Just by lifting something heavy 2, 3, 4 times a week. If you had a chance to watch part 3, then you know exactly what I'm going to say about fasting. All right. From here on in, you need to be one of those advocates who, when someone says, "Can I fast every day?" Sure you can. Of course you can. No one's coming to your home and twisting your arm. But why would you want to? Knowing what the impact is, knowing, as Thomas DeLauer showed in that last video, what did he say?
But if you're doing these short-term fasts every day, you're not ever getting to the point where you're getting the leucine sparing or the beneficial muscle preserving effect of ketones. You're just sitting kind of right in this gray area and you're doing it every day. So 16-8 is essentially caloric restriction.
So if your body's going to treat intermittent fasting done regularly, done every day as a calorie restricted regimen, as a calorie restricted diet, holy crap, then there's repercussions. Then there's deleterious consequences, and we don't want that. So your advice to anybody, your admonition, your guidance, and if anybody asks, should be no. Of course you can. Why would you want to? Why would you want to fast every day if you know you're going to have a downgrade in metabolism, it's somewhat unhealthy, and you're going to lose muscle in the process? Study after study proves it. Whereas every study I showed you in part 2 and 3 on keto and on fasting showed that by staggering it, by alternate day at a minimum, we prevent that. We prevent that from happening. The body realizes that we're fasting and that it's not a long-term, consistent, calorie-restricted regimen. Dr. Mindy made the same comment. More, she said,
we're learning that when you fast too much, that there's a possibility that there could be a negative effect. You have to vary your fasts. 24-hour fast one day, 13-hour fast the next day, no fast the third day. It needs to constantly change.
Perfect. So stagger it. So let me give you an example of how it would look. Now, using myself as an example, and again, just an example, I do like to start most weeks off. Like today is Monday. I'm starting off today with a food-free Monday. So from yesterday at dinner until tomorrow at noon, no food. That's a 40-hour water fast. Sometimes I do it dry, but I like to start most weeks off with a 40-hour fast. Most weeks, not every time. All right, but the rest of the week, I'm going to stagger. My preference, my modality is 18 and 6. I like 18 and 6, and then in between those 18 and 6 days, 12-12s. All right. Now, the reason why I like 18 and 6 is because in that 6 hours, I can get 3 rather protein-centric meals in. Okay, I don't mind telling you, I can eat and then have a snack at about 2.5 hours, 3 hours later, protein snack, and then finish with a meal with the family. I love that. I like eating between 1 and 7 every day because I know I can focus on protein in that span. I can get my needs covered of protein. I can't in 20 and 4 or less. I certainly can't in Nomad. I did a couple of videos on the impact to muscle. You cannot eat enough to countermand the bulk of the day, the 23 hours a day you're in a negative nitrogen balance in Nomad. Do not think you can do OMAD and save muscle. You can't. There's a guaranteed. I have not seen one study to date where those doing OMAD, despite high protein when they eat and despite resistance training, could save the muscle they had. Not one study to date. If you have one, please put a comment down below. I'll turn it into a video just like this one. Right? At least with 18 and 6, I can eat 3 times high protein in my 6-hour window. When I say high protein, I just mean focused on protein. Not even all that high. I actually don't even hit 150 grams for the day, but I know I can focus 3 batches of 30 and get 90 grams in a 6-hour window. I just can't do that in any smaller time frame. If you can, God bless you. All right, but let me give an example of what that looks like for me. All right, you do you. All right, this is not to tell you what to do. This is just a sample of what my menu looks like on my 18 and 6 versus on my 12 and 12. I like to break with bacon and eggs. In fact, if you're like me, you can probably eat the same thing every day. There are a lot of people who can't do that. I love bacon and eggs. In fact, I don't mind telling you, I've been eating the same food for pretty much 30 years, and I love it. I can eat it every day. I love bacon and eggs. I can mix up, fry up, boil, hard boil over easy, doesn't matter, scramble 4 or 5 eggs with 4 or 5 strips of bacon. Delish. I look forward to it. Some salt and pepper, some hot sauce. Oh my God, I'm salivating already. Okay, so that's what I'm going to look forward to breaking my fast with tomorrow is some good bacon and eggs till I'm full. Probably 5 eggs and 5 strips of bacon. And then a couple of hours later, I'm going to do something like a protein smoothie or a protein shake. A nice chocolate whey that I enjoy with a scoop of peanut butter powder in there. A dash of cinnamon. And a cup and a half of almond milk. Are you kidding? I love it. I look forward to it. Now, sometimes I don't feel like having that protein smoothie though, and in which case I like to do something called, I'll show a picture of it here, called Pseudo Nachos. I love these. These are pork rinds. Pork rinds are my Pseudo Nachos. I covered in shredded cheese. I shredded some cheese. I put some bacon bits, some more hot sauce, and if there's any leftover chicken or some ground beef or something, put that on top. Oh my God, that's like 50 grams of protein right there, and I love it. I look forward to it. I relish it. I can't wait to have my Pseudo Nachos, if not my protein smoothie. And then dinner with the family. Whatever the wife and I decide, it could be steak, it could be pork chops, it could be some beautiful farmer sausage with a salad, maybe some broccoli or cauliflower. Love it. Love it. I can eat that. What I just gave you right there, I could eat every day. That is my menu every fasting day, which is 18 and 6. And in the 12-12, I just happen to eat one more time. So I'll stagger those meals out and I'll get 4 good protein-centric meals in a 12-hour window. Every 3 hours, something. Protein-centric, protein-focused, and then whatever else is available on top. All right, so that to me is just so simple to do. Bacon and eggs, a smoothie, the nachos, dinner with the family, on any given day. I can't wait. I look forward to that regimen, and because of it, not only have I been able to maintain the muscle I've got, I don't mind telling you, I've added a little bit in my 40s and 50s because I focus on protein and I work out hard 6 times a week. All right, do that. Figure out a way to make that happen. I'm not telling you it's mandatory, but I'll tell you something. If you want to keep the muscle you got, let alone maybe add a few ounces. Hey, you know something? One of my favorites is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. I quote her all the time. And my favorite phrase that she says is that muscle is the organ of longevity. Well, if you're like me and you want to live long, you want to live healthy for as long as physically possible, focus on protein. Focus on keeping the muscle, especially as we age. Now I'm in my 50s and that thing called sarcopenia starts to rear its ugly head, which is nothing more than an age-related, just due to nothing more than getting older, loss in muscle and in strength. I'm fighting that. I don't want that. I'm not going down without a fight, and you shouldn't either. You should never give up an ounce of muscle without a fight, and that means 2 simple things. Up a little bit of protein, not high protein, just up a little bit. We talk about that all the time. Don't be afraid. My goodness, the rhetoric on protein is still silly, but get some lifting in. Do something that at least will spark a little bit of MPS, a little muscle protein synthesis. Keep what you got and maybe even add a few ounces. Oh, have I beat that one to death yet? I think so. I think that horse is down and dead. Okay, I'm not going to kick it anymore. So on that note, I hope you got through this and got some takeaways. I hope you had an epiphany. I hope you're rethinking your deficit. And if you aren't yet lifting something heavy, if you aren't yet doing any resistance training, do it. Add it. All right, throw it in. Your body will only thank you. Your health and your well-being, your muscle will thank you. All right, make sure it happens. And as always, your comments, your suggestions, anything you want to critique about this series, please do put a comment down below. The best comments do turn into videos like this one. So if you do have something concrete, I'd love to give you credit for it and do a video. So please do that. But on that note, hey, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming out and hanging out with me in this 4-part series. I hope you got some good takeaways. And on that note, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Ciao for now.